Martinez. Commissioner Santos is excused. So, Mr. General Manager Miguel Verdallo, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have 4 issues for decision, 5 on the agenda, but one's a joint resolution that.
Okay.
So we have 4, and I can start with.
Sure.
So the first one is Resolution 17, and this authorizing PWA and GPA to payments on behalf of solid waste at our and GWA facilities. This is a request that came from the SWA with regard to our being able to accept their customers' facilities subject but there is a authorizing their management to take this type of arrangement with us and to draft the MOA for review and circulation among the parties. What we're proposing, or what is proposed in the MOA, is that it limit the liability of GPA and GWA, that it expressly states that there be no commingling of funds, and sets out that any costs associated with handling their payments would be subject to repayment by them, and also a service fee would be applied. As I mentioned, this is intended to be handled at the Fidian and Hulale and Upper Tumon facilities. It will not cost GWA or GPA anything, as GSWA would need to pay for our fees for collecting their payments, and there would be no commingling of funds. It would only be put into effect after the MOA was satisfactory to all parties and fully executed, and would implement it after that.
Okay, before we get started, I just want to be clear on something. When this was brought up last time, it was brought up under the procurement of merchant services. That's where this was. It was a request to joint procure merchant services, and then we got involved, and I think the sense of the commission at the time was, wait a minute, what are we doing? And do we have even a board resolution from GWA telling us what their needs are, what they want to do? Now, what I see before me is a little different. Now it's no longer procuring merchant services, because the discussion I remember, and commissioners remind me if I'm wrong, is the fact that they wanted to avail themselves of better fees for their merchant services, because we get real good fees, and this is a little different. This is a departure from that, in my opinion. This is a little more, and I'm a little confused as to why we're taking a bigger step. I guess to me, I think this is a bigger step to actually now becoming their bank. We're becoming like their financial institution to collect money for them. And I've got to tell you that I'm a customer of Guam Solid Waste, and the treasurer of Guam doesn't accept their payments. But I'm also a customer of a really good bank on Guam called Bank Pacific, and that's where I pay my solid waste bill, and I never have a problem. So there are many opportunities for customers to pay their bill at Bank Pacific, at all the other banks. And so I'm a little confused as to going this far. I had no problem. I said all we needed is clarification on the procurement portion. Because if they want to get a better deal using credit cards or whatever, or better fees with the banks, I said I'm all for that. And they can join us, but we need to clarify what they're doing and that they have board support for what they want to do. So I don't know. I'm going to let everybody talk in a minute, but my initial thought is that we really need to table this and have our legal counsel kind of review this, because this now gets into a little bit more detail, and we have to make sure our bond covenants and everything is fine. But okay, so that's my 2 cents. Commissioner Sanchez.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, yeah, there's been a lot, to me, there's some confusing discussion out in the public domain, and it's raising questions, not only the chairman's questions about, the whole thing with merchant fees assumes some sort of commingling, right? My scenario where I think this could work is much simpler, and I want to confirm, are we talking about the same thing? If Simon comes in with his check to GPA or GWA, I can pay it at any of our facilities and or banks, right? But the check is to GPA and the check is to GWA. First off, in accepting GSWA payments, is the ratepayer writing a check or giving cash? Well, checks I don't worry about if it says GSWA. They're not taking their $38 water bill and their $30.38 trash bill and writing a check to GWA for $68.49. Right? They are writing a separate check to one entity, just like I can walk into any of our facilities with 2 checks, one to GPA, one to GWA. I don't write one check and have tolling and...
That's
and
correct. They would be writing separate checks.
Okay.
Their funds would not go into our accounts.
So there's been some confusion because some of our leadership has talked about, they have their challenges and trying to facilitate a way for payment, thinking that the payment with trash collection is a payment problem, when their problem is really, there are some people that haven't signed up for trash collection and they throw it in the jungle. That's a different problem. That's not a collection problem. In fact, I was curious whether GSWA has a collection problem. But if we're just facilitating that, I can walk in with a 3rd check that says GSWA, like the chairman does, and I do at Bank Pacific. I can pay my power, water, and GSWA, but I have 3 separate checks. Yeah. Then I'm okay with the concept. That's what I want to confirm. Are we just saying that as long as it's a separate check to either GP, GW, or GSWA, a ratepayer of any of those 3 entities can come to any of our facilities, Fidian, Lali, and Upper Tumon, with 1, 2, or 3 checks addressed to the proper utility, and we can accept those, because then the segregation is easy, right? At night you grab all the GSWA checks and you send it down to GSWA. The rest, GPA, you give to GPA, GWA you guys keep. If that's what we're doing, I'm okay with offering another option to ratepayers as another place that a GSWA ratepayer can pay their bill. I'm okay with facilitating that as long as the payment is GSWA. Now checks is easy. What about cash, right? As long as it's cash to a GSWA invoice, I imagine you're okay. But they can't walk in with 3 utility bills that total $390. Hand $330 to the cashier and have the cashier try to figure out who gets short. If it's the exact amount, 30 here, and 220 over there, that expensive power bill, so much more than water. If it's 3 separate invoices with cash, our team can handle that. 3 separate checks, our team can handle that. I just want to confirm that if that's the intention, is to just give GSWA another place for their ratepayers to bring the check to GSWA or the cash to just GSWA with an invoice, then I'm supportive of that concept. But and if that's what it is, and that's good. I just to finish that. As you know, you're hearing some discussion that just the way it was articulated, it started to sound like you could write 1 check for 3 utility payments. And we already know we don't do that for our own 2 checks. They're separate. Now, when a cash customer comes in to these facilities, they're trying to pay 2 bills. They show up with 2 bills, and here's the cash for this bill, here's the cash, counting's cleaning. So is that what we're doing? We're simply offering another payment outlet for GSWA ratepayers to make a payment, but their payment would have to be specific to GSWA. It would not be commingled with GPA money. It would not be commingled with GWA money, and any cash payment would have to equal, for GSWA, it would have to equal that invoice in full, right? Because I think there's a sense that there's leverage that if Simon doesn't have a trash can, I can get GPA or GWA to cut off his bill because I haven't signed up for a trash can. Because there's this myth that says, since there's 40,000 GWA residential customers and 40,000 GPA residential customers, how come there's only 25,000 trash customers, right? But, and the challenge there is, like in our compound, we have 4 water meters and we have 5 power bills, but we only need 2 cans because we only have 2 people in these 5 structures. And the way it's being described, it would be like the Sanchez family would have to buy 3 more trash cans just so that the number of trash cans equals the number of, for GSWA equals the number of ratepayers at GBA and GWA, and that doesn't make any sense if we don't need the trash can. I mean, my family's not running up to the jungle and dumping it. We buy a can, but we only need 1 can. You know, one structure only has 4 people living in it. Why would we need 2 cans? But we do need 2 water meters, and we do need 2 power meters. So I think some of the public rhetoric has confused the issue. As I read it, and I'm seeing some head nodding, and I'm sure you'll confirm it, it sounds like we're just simply like Bank Pacific. Another place for a ratepayer to pay their bills. And they can pay 3 bills at Bank Pacific, and conceivably the proposal is they can pay 3 bills at a GPA or GWA cashier location, and we can accept that. But the instrument of payment is clearly distinguished between what bills are being paid, especially when it comes to cash, and how the cash is allocated. So, am I understanding it correct that we're simply offering another payment location for GSWA?
And the solid waste customer has to bring in their own coupon. So because we're not looking up their bill.
Because I recall what the chairman's talking about, but that was if we were going to commingle credit card charges because we have a better rate. But that would introduce a whole problem. We don't want it at our utility.
For clarity, that particular resolution
Is separate.
is separate, and the amendment that is going to be proposed by GPA at their work session is on the basis of the GSWA board providing the resolution that
Was
that
requested.
was discussed in the previous.
Well, but to me, the question is not the resolution. If I come in with my credit card to pay my power bill and my water bill, $200 power bill, $30 trash bill, and I use the credit card for $230, right? We just got to make sure, and I guess it's no different than cash. You just have to make sure the 30 goes to this person and the 200 goes to that person. And my only concern is, I'm only concerned about partial payments. If my bill is $230 and I only come in with $190 and I walk into the cashier, that can't pay the 200 or the 30. So where does the $190 go? You know, that's your management headache. That's your cashier headache. You know, what does our cashier do with a partial payment, right? It would seem to me you'd have to allocate a partial payment. I mean, you see, now you create a headache you don't want, to me.
You don't create the allocation.
It's the customer with. And
Right,
at
but
this,
my concern is that whatever they pay us, even if we're just being helpful, that's one thing. Whatever you write to GSWA or giving cash, that's a GSWA. Make sure that you do today can't partial payment for GWA. You could, but you better tell the cashier how to apply partial payments, and then you're going to have a balance. Made it for service if you don't pay it off. So if I understand the proposal, we're simply assisting GSWA by being like a Bank Pacific, providing another place for a GSWA ratepayer to make a payment. Right now, if they walk into Blue Alley, they can pay their power and the water, but they can't pay their trash. And management's trying to help them give it one step easier since we have some capability to receive payments.
Correct.
Okay, Commissioner Mtalco.
Okay, thank you. So, my question is, what drove this whole request anyway? What is the root problem that GSWA is facing with collections? If there are multiple
They have a
places,
collection
yeah, if there are multiple places to make payment already, why are all of a sudden the request is for either GW or GPA to be handling it?
So, my understanding is that the request kind of started in the middle of COVID, when places shut down and they didn't have a place to accept payments. It started with Dropbox. Could they put a Dropbox at our locations because we were accepting payments because we had the drive-through. So I think that's where the discussion started, and I'll defer to the CFO to answer how it progressed after that to this specific request.
So what happened late last year was the utilities all got a letter from one of the banks, one of the bigger banks, saying that they were going to change their fees from $1 to $2 for each payment. And when that happened, we got a request. I believe there was a letter to both GMs, separate letter to each GM asking us to consider whether we would accept payments at our facilities. I think that they're thinking about discontinuing payment at the bank that doubled their charges because they just couldn't afford that extra payments.
So you don't foresee there being a cost of service to GSWA?
So we would be charging $1 for every, or at least that's the current discussion.
Okay, so that we'll be charging a fee to do it.
Right.
Okay.
Like a bank.
And they would pay for any costs, they would provide all their supplies, and we've already talked to our software vendor and determined how much it would cost to make it easier for the cashiers to accept the payments and segregate them.
Okay.
And they're willing to pay those costs.
And so, do we have the cost model? Do we estimate what you're going to collect, and will that cover whatever cost that you've factored in to come up with this fee?
So both the GPA and GWA teams have been talking to each other and trying to develop the procedures and determine that they believe that the fee that we're proposing should cover the additional cost for the cashiers to handle the payments.
Okay, so if we're going to actually entertain it on the regularly scheduled meeting, I'd want to see the cost model.
Commissioner Martinez.
I just wanted to, is this an
some follow-up.
MOU or MOA?
It should be an MOA, Memorandum of Agreement, because it will involve payment funds. If it
Yeah.
doesn't involve funds, then it's usually just an MOU. So it may have been mistermed by GSWA in their draft, but our intention is to correct it when we finalize the MOA.
Yeah. The other thing is, I agree with Simon that it should be just a straightforward service. The only thing that I was looking at the presentation up there is that puzzles me is the limitations on liability. I don't know. There shouldn't be any liable for any of the.
That's exactly
That's
what,
the limit.
that's why we want to put it in
I
the
agree.
MOA. So
Yeah.
it's to make sure that that's the case.
Okay, well, Commissioner Nchako.
Is this reciprocal? Are they accepting payments on behalf of GWA and GPA?
They don't really have a site, that's the reason. They have a small facility behind Public Works.
We don't want to send it.
No,
At some point in the future, if they have
It was kind of a rhetoric question. It's just kind of like, is this a one-sided, can you do
Yeah,
this for
you know-
me, and what are you going to do for me? There's
You-
no quick pro quo?
you know, I'm going to tell you something. Some of the questions that came up in my mind, the flags I saw was, one of the things is, when I signed up for a trash service, I mean, the first thing I said was, okay, and then I got my first bill, I ran over to the treasurer farm. Now, you people know, I'm not an online payer, I'm not a pay by phone. I still write a check, and I go to the place, and I stand in line. A lot of people still look at me, why are you getting in line? Because that's me, okay? When old guys die, then you guys can always have those people like this. But here's my point. I went to Treasurer of Guam, and they looked at me and said, no, we don't accept solid waste payments. And I went, what do you mean you don't accept? They accept our payments right now.
Interesting.
But I said, why don't they accept that payment? And then I
I'd
found,
have an MOA.
and then I found out I could pay for it with at Bank Pacific, because, well, and also other banks, but what I meant is I'm a customer of Bank Pacific. I'm doing a little ad here for my bank. But, you know, and it works. I go in and I do my business and I bring my bill with me and I'm in and then out and I'm done. But, you know, here's some things. Have you run this by legal? I mean, have you done any real research on this issue, Kelly? I mean, okay. So, you know, before we go...
Using our labor to do the work.
Yeah, you know, so here's the thing. I think we need to pause for a minute, maybe table this, and I'd like, in addition to the numbers that Commissioner Mtiako is interested in, I'm interested in the legal aspects, just to make sure, as we're running down the road here, that you know, we don't run into a problem. And you know, again, I'm also concerned, like Commissioner Sanchez, the media outlet there, the public discussion, I heard part of it seems to say, well, you know, if you didn't pay your water bill, I mean, you didn't pay your solid waste, your water bill might be disconnected. I mean, that kind of scares me. I don't know, did you hear that? I heard a little bit.
That is a common, I'm often on the radio, I'm asked about that. That's a common characterization I've heard by some public officials as, you know, again, it's a I understand the idea, but the practical reality is if they think they can, like Commissioner Mtiako, first off, do they have a collection problem with the existing process?
Yeah.
I'm not aware of it, but okay, even if we're helpful, because to me, this is helping out. We're all part of the big government family, but there was also this idea that if they didn't pay that I heard out there, if they didn't pay the trash bill, Miguel could turn off their water. And I know that that's something, I've never heard Miguel propose it that way, I've never heard John B. propose it that way, and clearly the board has never thought about it that way. So I think that's confused it a little bit. This to me is no different than being a bank agreeing to accept payments for a fee, except now it's going to be GWA and GPA because we have 3 locations. Not all banks accept government payments. Some do, some don't, and I assume and those banks charge a fee to that utility. That's what we're doing. We're charging a fee to GSWA, but I'd like to see the MOA actually and the numbers just to make sure the fee justifies it. Although, you know, Chairman, or was it Chairman that you said was $1? Does a bank charge it? Who said a bank charges $1? Or did I mishear that? Anyway, I thought someone mentioned that. And if that might actually be a good thing. Oh, they're leaving a bank because the fee went up. What was the fee the bank used to charge, and what is the fee they're charging now? And are we charging less than the new fee? Are we just charging the old fee? Do you have any background on GSWA? Because I read in the resolution they're talking to us because their bank arrangement apparently got more expensive. Okay, and they don't want to pay 2. What are they going to pay us? 1? And does that cover our
Costs, you know, especially like credit
I
cards.
think that's the logic of the question.
Yeah. So I'm sorry, just one more. So in that view, to me, in addition to knowing better numbers, I think we need to do a little more research on this. I'd also like the legal part done, just to make sure that we don't go rushing down the road and find out we have another problem. And so my suggestion is we table this until we get some of these answers, okay? And legal, Kelly, could you go through this and actually do a legal search, make sure? One of the things I want to be careful, you know, we're not supposed to be I like what Simon just said, you know, we're acting as a financial institution. We're going to take their payments for them. We're not a financial institution. You know, I want to make sure that we don't get into something that we're not supposed to get into. So my suggestion is we table this and not take it forward and then get some better research numbers and everything done.
Numbers in a draft MOA?
Draft MOA and some legal research.
I missed that, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Because I saw the resolutions, I didn't see the draft. Are the numbers in the draft MOA?
Well,
Well, I mean, even if it is, and can we get something from GSWA that says the draft form of the MOA, subject to their board approval, is acceptable? That helps you guys to say, hey, this is what we've worked out. This is what the MOA might look like based on what we've worked out. And two boards have to ultimately say yes. That's 3 lawyers, 2 minutes.
so anyway,
As long as our lawyer's talking, we should be okay.
I think that's what I recommend. Commissioner Chalco has some further thoughts.
Yeah, and I know that we talked about, even in the draft MOA, like, the financial challenge is not just.
Yeah, that's a scary part.
My follow-up question to that is it their intent to just hand this off to GWA and GPA now? Like, all right, you guys are handling the receiving the payments, we're not gonna do it at all anymore? Or is this just a supplement? What is the real intent? Have we even asked them, saying, are you sure this is part of your collection?
My understanding is it's just to supplement. And if I mentioned that my first knowledge of assistance to GSWA came because of COVID, but I'm sorry if you interpreted that statement to mean that this is because of COVID. This resolution is separate.
Okay, yeah, but it seems logical that, there's been limited access to go to DPW and pay it, but,
Right.
but it sounds like, and then that one sentence is that we're doing a good job of this, so we need assistance. People that do a good job of it.
Yeah, actually, who approached us on this? I mean, I meant to ask that when we were talking about the procurement portion. Who approached us? CFO? Yeah? That's going to make me a little more nervous because all of a sudden now we're getting more and more involved in actually helping them run their business. I don't, no. You said, well, they're looking at changing their financial services system out, and.
I called the Porta, I called the airport.
Uh-huh.
About what they're doing, so I'm not doing that.
I don't have a problem with that. I have a problem though if, as we're going down the road here, that all of a sudden they would like us to help them do more, Okay, Commissioner Limchaco.
I completely forgot what I was.
You're too young to do that. Yeah, you can always drop them an email.
You're approaching our age, I see.
Yeah, young guy. You're the youngest member on this commission, by the way.
Yeah, don't get forgetful yet. We're counting on you to remember.
Yeah, somebody's got to tell
We're
us.
recording all this stuff.
Yeah. So anyway, so for all those reasons, and as you go do a little more research, let's then we'll take it up at another day. But let's table this for now. Okay. Next.
The next issue for decision is Resolution 18 FY 2021, and this is seeking approval of our comprehensive review and update package for submission to the Public Utilities Commission for our 5-year plan. As you recall, when the rate plan was first, five-year financial plan was first submitted to the PUC, we ended up receiving a stipulation, entering a stipulation and receiving a rate order which allowed for fixed rates for the first 2 years, which was 20 and 21, with the condition that we complete 7 analytical studies, which would then be used to inform a a true-up on steroids, if you will, a comprehensive review and update, right, for the last 3 years of the plan. And so the requirement was that we submit those studies by March 31st, which we did, and then submit the comprehensive review and update package by May 1st. So in order to meet that May 1st deadline, we need the CCU to approve the rate package, and at the meeting on the 27th, and then we will then submit it to the PUC on May 1st. In support of that rate package, we have provided you with a brief presentation previously, and then the actual analytical studies themselves. So of the 7, 5 were finalized and 2 were submitted in draft form, because in order to complete those 2, the other studies needed to be done first. So the 5 that were completed were the demand forecasting, which was analytical study 1, the water loss reduction analytical study, which was number 2, capital financing alternatives, which was number 5, capitalized labor, which was number 6, and the cesspool and septic tank elimination study, which was number 7. The draft reports that were submitted were the cost of service analysis and report, and then also the affordability and rate design, and it's primarily the rate design portion that is still in draft. So the intention is to, after submission of those reports on the 31st, between the 31st of March and the 1st of May, to finalize the projections for the next 3 years, bring in the impacts of our actual performance of the last 2 years, and then all of the outputs of these analytical studies, which contemplate, for example, in reducing water loss, certain capital improvement expenditures, and then certain O&M, operation and maintenance expenditures in order to implement the water loss reduction program. So those types of costs need to be factored in to our projections. And so we're finalizing that now, and to determine what the overall cost of service is, what the general rate increases would need to be in order to support those projections, and then how we design the rates in each individual customer class to achieve those overall objectives. So that all has to happen by the time you approve or act on the package that we submit by the 27th, that meeting on the 27th. So in support of that, we need to have a more detailed presentation of the results of the analytical studies, the rate application model that has been developed to comply with the PUC requirements for filing, and the various options or outputs of the studies that affect what rates would be required, what our revenue requirement is. And so that presentation we plan to make, because it involves our consultants who are in the States, tomorrow morning, in order to work out the times. And so they'll be available to make that presentation and to walk you through the rate application model and all the nuances associated with that tomorrow morning. So the draft resolution here, the numbers are left blank for the rate increases because we still need to finalize those numbers, but essentially what it contemplates is the rate increases that will be required in order to cover the debt service on our 2028 bonds, which kick in next year, and also to provide the necessary revenues for the additional borrowing to complete the 5-year CIP as it's been already approved.
That borrowing is in 2023. Contemplated.
To be in 2023, yes.
Yeah, okay. To that end, what we'll do is, at the end of this meeting, we'll recess this meeting to 8 a.m. tomorrow morning, so that we can further discuss with our consultants on the phone or in Zoom, whatever, all the specifics, and hopefully we'll be able to fill in some of those blanks. That's the goal. So that as we prepare for Tuesday's meeting, we'll have the blanks filled in and we'll be all set.
We have a lot of time, but time
Yeah,
is a
yeah.
challenge. But
So just to round it out, the projections will include continued cost containment for us.
Sure.
You know, above what we budgeted, we think we need. We recognize that because of the revenue issues with COVID and the economic recovery that we're hoping will come, we'll still need to carry into the future cost containment measures. So that those will be included in the rate application model, as well as the provision if there are any federal funds that are received, we can recognize as revenues, and of course the rate stabilization fund that the board has already acted on and given us the authority to implement if we need to.
Yeah, you know, all those things are good because, as Commissioner Sanchez has always said, most of the majority of our rate increases has always been geared towards the bond debt service, and our debt service coverage has been going down, and you know, you just don't have a choice. You have to get the debt service coverage to where we're contractually obligated to get it. Okay, so no, this is all good discussion, and I envision we'll have a great discussion tomorrow morning. However, Commissioner Chaco, you had a question, and then
Yeah.
Commissioner Sanchez.
So I remembered what I was asking. I know Commissioner Sanchez talked about cash, accepting cash and checks. What about credit cards? Are they going to have their own merchant account? So like their credit cards are being charged on their merchant account as opposed to, you know, commingling?
So at the time that we were developing the MOU, the contemplation was that we would not receive credit card payments, and that's because they have a facility online to allow their customers to do that,
Okay, so it's just cash and check.
cash and checks.
Okay. And then on this resolution here, I think you already answered my question, but you've already factored in the impacts of the pandemic into this rate analysis, right?
Yes.
And then you also mentioned that if we do get any federal funds associated with the relief package, you would factor that into the rate structure. Okay.
Yeah, just for clarity. Even after we do this and we set the next 3 years rate, there's still the annual true-up where you know, if we get federal funds, that's where that's taken into account. So these are all good things. We're still keeping the true-up process.
Yes,
Yeah, okay.
we anticipate that will be a result
Yeah,
of.
which is that's a good thing. We've done that for many years. Commissioner Sanchez.
And then just,
Oh,
I
do you
don't want to
finish?
get too far ahead, but there may be some new debt we might be pursuing in the next 3 years.
2023,
23.
another bond issuance to cover the final end of the 5-year CIP that's already been approved.
And to kind of really begin the next part of it, that's the project. So it's a similar movie. We've been in, you know, the prequel, and now we're in the sequel, the EPA prequel and sequel, but we frequently are borrowing money to fix things. And my impression is that the focus of CIPs in the coming decade, a lot on water line replacement. In fact, we have a big project to approve that is being funded by prior bonds, right?
Right.
Water and sewer line replacements, reducing the water loss is that's a huge CapEx because, you know, you built Agate, you're building Northern. We'll figure out again someday, but that I haven't heard anyone say in the next 3 years like a permanent solution again. You know. So, but it's when I look at us through 2035, I look at some numbers as the chairman does. You know, $300, $400, $500 million new projects needed to fix and replace lines that are older than the chairman. In fact, older than John Beneventi, which is really old. So we need to start replacing the lines,
yes,
not Mr.
yeah.
Beneventi or the chairman.
Yeah.
At least the line. But so that's it. That's what we'll be looking at. That's what tomorrow's about.
Tomorrow,
Is a
yes.
very detailed rate study. Is there a wage migration also under consideration between now and 25? You know, up another 5%. I forget where we're at. Are we at 20 now? Remember, 25?
We're at 20 now. I don't know that but it was.
So nothing in no contemplated wage migration. And then what about increments and all that? Did you budget for that, or is that part of the cost containment?
There is a budget there, but it's contingent on us being able to achieve it, right? So cost containment is applied as a percentage across all of the the budget, and then it depends on what we can realize and what we can't.
Because I appreciate that, that's been a long-standing policy of the commission, is to over time gradually move the wage scale of both utilities. When we started, Commissioner Martinez, we were at the 5 percentile, now we're up to 20. 20 years later, UWA is up to 20, I think GPA is up to 25, so it wasn't like
No,
we went...
we're the same.
Oh, the same, okay.
We
But
want to
it wasn't
keep
like,
it that way.
yeah, so in 20 years, we've moved them from 5 to 25. We didn't move them from 5 to 90. It means 75% of the people doing the same work in the mainland are being paid more than our people, but that's what we can afford also. And so I was wondering and anticipating that in the next 3 years, continued migration, and what would that cost? And mostly for being transparent.
Yeah.
If we're going to raise rates, ratepayer rates, where is their money going? How are we using it? And that's our obligation to them. I actually look forward, this is the kind of stuff we've been doing for a long time. This is our 3rd or 4th or 5th 5-year plan, and the chairman and I have been doing rates for 30 plus years. So this is an important exercise, and I'm glad we're doing all those studies. We wanted to figure out water loss and try to get a plan. But the PUC requirements that they required and we were comfortable with produced a good series of studies that will find our ability to just maybe in the future don't use triple X. Maybe use question marks. Some people might think this rate plan is triple X rated. And
Okay.
The good news is by next Tuesday, it won't be triple X rated. It'll be a number.
Yeah.
That might be X rated.
Okay. That's fine. So that's the discussion so far on that one. We'll, of course, go really
That's
in depth tomorrow morning.
That's tomorrow.
Okay? Next one.
The
we got?
next resolution is 19 FY 2021, and this is for the approval of the Tai Road, Kanyata Totolu
Yeah.
water line replacement project. So this was put out to bid, and the scope of work involves replacing old ACP lines with new 12 and 14-inch PVC lines, and replacing certain laterals and disconnecting old lines that are subject to frequent breakage and water loss. So this is in the village of Mangilao and in Barragata. The Ta'i Road and S13, I believe, are in Mangilao, and Toto Cañada and Blas Street are in Barragata. So we had several bidders who submitted on this construction project. The lowest bid was actually deemed non-responsive. So the next lowest combined bid, which includes the base bid and all the additive bids, came out to 1.945 million. And they were deemed responsive after significant evaluation by the engineering team. And the next nearest bid was over $85,000 higher. So we are recommending award. Because it is over $1 million and it does involve bond funding, it needs to be approved by the Public Utilities Commission. Because of the urgent nature of this project, and in order to not delay any further replacement for the residents who have suffered under these old pipes, we have submitted a draft of the resolution in advance to the PUC's AOJ and asked if they would consider putting it on this month's agenda.
Okay.
They graciously agreed, understanding the situation that the ratepayers are in that will be affected by this project. So they are standing by, and if the board approves this, then the PUC will take it up at their meeting this month as well. The funding source for this project is 2020 bond funds under two separate CIP line items. There were 4 interested bidders who submitted bids. As I mentioned, one was deemed non-responsive, and of the remaining 3, we are recommending the next lowest and bidder at $1.945 million.
You know, this is where we have lines that continually break. The Cañada one is one of those. Mayor June Bloss came to one of our meetings about a year ago, and then I bumped into her a few months back, and she said, "Nothing's going on." And I said, "No, Mayor, You have to understand, we're doing the engineering, we're doing, we've got a lot of things. We have to make sure we know where the right-of-ways are on these roads. We can't do the old job before where they just put the pipe in, whether they knew where the right-of-way was. So I said to her, I assure you, this is coming, but this is just the beginning. We have Casimiro in Mongmong, where Mayor Paco is always asking me, what's going on? I said, Mayor, eventually that line has to be replaced. We have lines that we've replaced already in Santa Rita. We started there, Simon, you remember, but I think we're still going to have lines in Santa Rita that we're going to have to go back and replace again. Other lines. These lines don't last forever. And then you've got the sewer lines, where we just approved the second phase of the PD down to Agana wastewater treatment plant, and that was like another $5 million. So this is just going to be more and more of we knew this was coming. We just had to do all the other things first. Now we're getting around to, and this is all to improve service to our customers. Because I can tell you, nobody wants to be out of water, and especially the areas that have been hit with repeated outages. I have people call me up and said, Joey, this is the fifth outage in 2 months. And we said, well, you fix one. Commissioner Sanchez remembers, we had a lot of discussion before.
Forwarding is working.
Yeah.
You're getting it all good.
Yeah, and we would say, well, you fix this leak, and the pipe leaks another further down, because the pipe needs to be replaced. We've said this. Now I'm glad that we're finally doing this.
Yeah. I mean,
Okay.
and the good thing for GWA, CapEx is fixed costs. You don't ever be good that the good Lord doesn't charge you to leak out for water.
Yeah.
Right? GPA's challenge is the biggest expense is a variable expense and debt, and that's why your power bill is so much higher. For the average residential rate, $30-50. Maybe it's going to go to $40 and $60. Maybe my laundry is going to go up from 10 to 11,000, but it helps build your CapEx, which is a fixed expense once you put the new line in. The savings we will get from less chemicals, less power, because there's less leakage. Leakage means we have to repump it back up, the own water we lost, right? That's always been the long-term goal of the leak control and the water loss control. That costs ratepayers real money in their $35, $40 water bill, and so I think strategically we're doing all the right things as a water company, and how do you do $1.5 billion of post-war repairs? You spread it out over 30-35 years to keep water affordable, and that's
what
now
we're
in
doing.
the 20th year of the CCU, and our second EPA love affair, right? And we know what we got to do, and this is the beginning of the next phase of process. But it will lead to a much better system over time. We just have to be patient, and folks will be very busy for a long time.
Okay. Next.
I'll defer to the AGM of the administration to talk about the next resolution.
Thank you, Miguel.
Okay.
Next resolution is number 20, FY 2021, and it's relative to the creation of a new position of Community Outreach Program Director. This position is going to oversee our public outreach and education to advance various GWA programs, goals, and objectives. Specifically, the authority has applied for an AmeriCorps grant, and we're hoping to get AmeriCorps volunteers to assist us with 2 programs that would fall under this position. One being a fats, oil, and grease educational program. So the beneficiaries of that program would receive educational training from the volunteers, and we would concentrate those in areas where we have recurring issues with SSO, sanitary sewer overflows. The other program we're looking at implementing is a water conservation assessment program. So this would be similar to like a water audit type program, and this program would, the beneficiaries of this program would be those that have higher than average water consumption. So we would go in, review what's going on in their residence or business. If they have leaks, point those out, or if they could use different types of fixtures to conserve water, help them with those issues as well. So again, this is a position that is needed to oversee these programs with the public outreach, and we anticipate hopefully serving the community and improving our levels of service for different various water and wastewater programs.
Okay. That's fine. Commissioner Limchako, your question?
Under the cost, it shows that there will be no costs to create the position. Are you referring to like a funding source that you had referred to, a grant that's paying for the position, or there's a salary, I'm assuming,
There's a
that's
salary
associated?
involved for the position. I think the grant would, if the AmeriCorps grant is successful, then it would pay for a portion of the salary.
Okay, and this is something that we're currently not already doing. GWA does have a spokesperson. I know you have someone that does community outreach now, right? Or communications?
Right.
What would be the difference?
The communications manager assists with public outreach. This program director position is geared almost exclusively towards the community outreach and education efforts associated with the FOG program and the AmeriCorps program that we're talking about to start and then it would build into the programs that we might undertake as part of the affordability program that we discussed earlier about the rate, one of those analytical studies. So we anticipate that the workload will be sufficient to keep this position fully occupied. So it focuses left, whereas the communications manager currently handles this kind of stuff, but also media releases and all of that. This would focus almost exclusively on the public outreach part and not so much the public information part.
And so between the two of them, they're full-time positions so one is currently being overworked. If she's handling, they've got one person being able to do all of it right now.
This is going to add the additional programs that we're seeking to pursue with the AmeriCorps grant and the affordability program are going to increase the workload beyond what the current communications manager workload is.
And if passed, when would that position be filled?
Well, it would depend on the recruitment, but the plan would be to do it, especially within the next year or so, in order to move forward with the FOG program, which is going to increase based on what we're required to do under the consent decree that's currently being negotiated, and then also depending on what gets approved with the affordability program.
Mm-hmm. And also dependent on the grant, when you receive the grant?
Correct.
Okay, and when do you anticipate receiving the grant?
I think the awards will come within the next 3 months. So the application was submitted locally, and then it'll be submitted to the federal website within, I think, the next 2 weeks.
Okay, and did you say it'll partially fund the position?
Yeah.
Okay, so my concern is just like with your current cash flow, the current collections and revenue streams, how much of it is, when you say partial, is it 50%, 10%, 90%?
It hasn't been determined yet. We're still working with Serve Guam on the budget portion of the grant.
What is the position budgeted for?
I believe the minimum salary on this position was $83,000.
83.
Yeah. 83,126.
Okay. My concern is just your current financial position with the, we haven't even opened up the economy yet. You guys are still struggling with your revenue stream. I get that it's partially funded, but not a big fan of adding personnel until the financials are, stabilized or you start seeing light at the end of the tunnel. but I get it. I understand what it's designed to do. Just my thoughts. Yeah.
Okay. Well, Commissioner Martinez.
I just wanted to, the individual or the person is going to be handling also the grant administration?
Yes.
So sort of writing the grant and
And the reporting and the
the
management.
program on
Yes.
that?
Yeah, this specific grant is very administratively intense, so the position definitely will be focused on administering and complying with the grant.
And, I'm sorry. And would the person also be working with the mayors on the island? I mean, as far as community problems and
It's-
education?
Especially with the FOG program, the idea is to take that program into the villages that we have the most issues with in terms of the SSOs. And so, yeah, there will be a lot of coordination with the mayors.
Commissioner Taco.
What is the total amount of the grant that we're requesting?
For the first year, I believe it's a little bit under 200,000.
A little bit under 200,000, so an $83,000 position to manage a $200,000 grant.
Yeah, so we can only, on the first year of the AmeriCorps grant, you can only have up to either 10 full-time volunteers or 20 part-time volunteers. After you succeed through 1 year, then you can add on to that. So the idea would be we would add another 10 or 20 volunteers in the second year and expand the program.
Thank you for mentioning the volunteer workforce. That was my question I forgot to ask is, what is this volunteer workforce? Where do you see the volunteers coming from?
So generally, they come from, they're usually college age because they receive a stipend depending on whether they're full or part-time. And then at the end of their working the mandatory amount of hours, they also get a grant towards their tuition. So usually there's a lot of college students that apply for and work in these grants.
Oh, and the grant for the tuition comes from the same funding source, the $200,000?
No,
Something
not from the
different?
grant. Yeah, that's
Okay.
separate.
The stipend does, though.
The stipend does, but the grant does not. That's a separate funding source.
And so what, of the 200,000, what is projected to be paid out towards these volunteers?
I think it's about 50,000.
50,000?
Yeah.
So 83 and 50. And so the delta is being used for marketing? Is this the outreach?
So there's various components that are required for it. Some of it would be for marketing, some of it would be for salaries and benefits of non-volunteers. Some of it would also be for things like clearances, so they have to get court clearances before they start the program, drug testing. It's like a checklist package of things that are funded by the grant.
Okay.
But it would also cover the marketing material aspects of what we're doing.
Now, I have a question. I heard you say something about affordability. So in addition to all the grant stuff that this person would be doing, you're going to have them work with our ratepayers in terms of coming up with the rationale for the affordability? Is that it, or these?
They would be assisting the ratepayers to take advantage of any affordability programs that
Get
are
established.
implemented as part of the analytical study and the rate package
Okay.
that we submit to
Okay.
the PUC.
Yeah, okay, so in other words, then it's like, because I went through some of the stuff that, you gave us a volume of stuff, okay? A lot of stuff, which I'm very impressed with and very good, because this is finally something we've been looking at, okay? We've been talking about attacking our water loss problem, but we've never quite been able to get to that point, and I'm glad we're now at that point, okay? But now I hope I remember the question I wanted to ask you. But if we come up with a program that's going to now deal with some way, which we always talked about, some way of tying it in with the public assistance programs like SNAP or welfare. So this program will develop to help our lower income ratepayers. And so this person would also be handling that program? or developing it or doing
The
something?
public outreach portion, yes.
Yes, okay. Yeah, well, that's good. That's not part of the grant, though. That would be in addition to the grant work.
It would be part of the grant.
Yeah, it's public outreach, I understand, but what I mean is,
The program that the grant would fund would be part of the affordability program, but the
Subsidy?
the work that the director would be doing would cover the grant management and also the public outreach and education part with regard to affordability programs.
okay. Commissioner Chalco.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I see Exhibit A where it kind of gives a scope of work for this position, but can I get the actual, mission statement of the grant? Because I don't see it here. Like, what is it actually gonna do? What's the goal? Besides the scope of work for and we don't have to go through it now, we can do it for Tuesday's meeting.
Yeah.
So, just basically a scope of work of what you expect to accomplish with this, in using the grant funds, how you're gonna use it, what is, just kind of 50,000 foot level, as well as a cost model on how you're gonna spend the money.
Okay.
I think you've already identified two of the largest components, which is for the volunteer workforce and the program director.
Okay. Any other questions? No? Miguel, is that it? Or,
That's it for the resolution.
that's it for the resolutions, right? Okay. Okay, the GM summary. The GM's report? We have time.
Okay, we can go through, I'll give you
Yes.
starting with the workforce availability report as of April 14th. We have 93.2% healthy reporting for duty at the work site. That's 342 out of 367 employees. We have 9 on military leave. 1 employee sick with symptoms related to COVID-19. And then 3 employees sick with symptoms unrelated to COVID-19, and about 11 which are teleworking or partially teleworking. And then in terms of our vaccine status, we have about 15% with 1 shot remaining. For full vaccination, we have 38.7% fully vaccinated, and we have 46% who have not received any vaccinations yet. Moving on to the operation side on production, for the month of March, we had 39.2 MGD average production for all our sources, 35.8 for deep wells, 0.24 MGD for springs, and then 2.2 average for the Ugam plant, and 0.88 average for the Tuman Maui well.
Miguel,
Miguel,
you
real
have a
quick.
question?
The vaccination numbers that you went through with the 46% not receiving a shot, considering that they've lowered the age all the way down to 16 and you don't have to be essential, are you just seeing that employees don't want to be vaccinated, or do we know the reason?
I have not conducted any polling on that, sir, so I'm not quite sure what the reasons are that there is still 48 or 46% rather. Chris, I don't know if you have any information on that. No?
I know we can't force anybody to go get vaccinated and stuff like that. I'm just trying to figure out,
What's the hesitancy?
it seems like they're making it as simple as possible to get a vaccination right now.
Yeah.
And it just seems like,
I would say that the majority of the number are probably the younger folks in the workforce. We have talked about
younger than 16?
No.
no, but just the younger generation. So we have talked about putting on more of a campaign to encourage vaccination.
Yeah. Okay.
So we do plan to do that. We just haven't seen the response there yet from the younger guys.
Okay.
Why don't we link it to disconnecting their water?
Cut that out. No, I'm encouraged though, because, we have 14%, almost 15% waiting for their second shot.
Yeah, it's still pretty high.
So altogether, we're over the 50%
Yeah.
that the governor's talking
We're ahead
about.
of Japan.
Yeah,
I'm just wondering, what the.
what the hesitancy is. Yeah. No, I'm like Commissioner Mchako. I'm wondering what the hesitancy is, and maybe we need to do a little more outreach to these people and say, look, come on, what do you need to do? Let's go get a shot. Because it's for the good of the company and the island, you know. I'm pleased that we're very close to the 50%, and, you know, we're in line with what the governor is trying to do, and we're going to go past that.
I would just add, I'm actually encouraged by these numbers, more than double what it was last month.
Okay.
Give it another month and see what it's like.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, go back to where you were, Miguel.
Sorry. On our, as of the 31st, we had 96 active deep wells with 12 down for grounded motor or pump failure. Of course, the 2 secured for PFAS, and then 2 on standby, and the 8 that are down hard pending rehabilitation.
Miguel, just a quick question. So
Sure.
just understand, the 39.2 MGD that we pump out every day, is it correct to think that with our water loss program that we're going to implement, our goal, if we were to reduce water loss by 20%?
To 20%.
Or to 20 from 50, so we'd be reducing it 60%, right? 20 to 50 minus 30 is 60% of 50. So does that mean this 40, I'm just going to round it to 40 MGD, could go down low as mid 20 MGD once once we get, I mean, maybe not in our lifetime, but that's sort of the direction we're going, right?
There will be a reduction, there should be a corresponding
Significant
reduction,
reduction, yeah.
but I'm going to say it's not going to be, I think we had this conversation before about it not necessarily being one-to-one.
It's not linear, right?
Right.
But right now with a 50% water loss, or estimated 50% plus or minus, right? We're having to pump up 39 million gallons a day to serve our ratepayers and cover for a 50% water loss. If we bring that 50% down, then that MGD
Should go down.
should go down. It may not be linear, but it could be significant where, I mean, could it be, if we're at 40 now, in a decade, could we be at 30? That's a 25% reduction in total output.
Assuming no further increases in demand.
That's fair. So actually, we're almost we're going to have to migrate to a per capita consumption number.
So I think we would, the overall goal would be to see a marginal decrease in production, but an increase in sales.
Well, except that the water we're losing never makes it to my house to be sold. Out in the junk.
Well, as we tighten that up,
I think that's where the guy dumping the trash is getting his water. He just moves out there, dumps his trash, and drinks free water and free trash.
Yeah. No, one.
But I mean, that's where we're going, right? We're trying to drive that 40. If we do this right, that 40 MGD should drop. I'll use the word significantly. That's our goal. You know, and the saving, because where I'm going with it is, if we go from 40 to 30 MGD, how much power are we saving? How much in chemicals? Those are real dollar savings that we can explain to our ratepayers that we're going to spend $1 to fix leaks over here, but you're going to get that dollar back over time because we're going to save on power and chemicals and maintenance.
and those numbers I think are explained fairly well in detail, and the economics of the water loss is explained good amount of detail in that analytical study.
Yeah.
Great.
And the other thing too is, I think it's not only a thing of reducing the amount of water you pump out of the ground, it's also increasing the pressure and the reliability to our customers, you know. So that there's a lot of moving parts. That's what I kind of noticed in the water loss study, that you're going to be balancing the whole island out so that, you know, because for years we've had problems, you know, people said, well, I always have low water pressure. And I think the goal is to boost up water pressure for all the people. So, you know,
And lower it where it's too high right now.
and there's some areas where this,
Reducing overall water loss.
while reducing overall water loss. So it's a big picture, it's a bigger picture. So, and I'm very pleased and very happy. We're finally getting, listen, we're becoming the better water utility that we always wanted to be. I think that from get-go, from 2002 when Commissioner Sanchez started this whole march down the road.
I don't know why it took so long.
Yeah, no, but really, you always said you can't eat the elephant all at one time. You got a bite at a time. But I'm really very happy with the fact that we're actually becoming that better and better water utility, And it looks good for our children and grandchildren. I want to leave for our children and grandchildren better than we found it, because, I've always had my thoughts, and Commissioner Sanchez always likes my thing that, the list is long and distinguished. But, hopefully we do a better job.
And this, the flip side of this is the aquifer.
Yeah.
The less we pull out of that aquifer,
The better.
longer the useful life of it becomes.
Yeah,
With drought and all that, so it's holistic in that approach.
yeah, and it's coming together, really.
Now
I'm
you
very,
throw some money at it and a strategy and a rate plan that takes into account these types of goals.
Yeah.
That can calculate the CIP you're going to need, or you figure out what it is, and then it can figure out the rate necessary to generate cash flow necessary.
so continue on. Moving right along.
So moving on to 2-month Maui production, you can see we were on target at about 1 MGD. We lost a couple days of production because of power issues and then an instrumentation issue, but overall we're producing where we should be producing out of 2-month Maui. Moving on to the distribution system, overall pump station operability is still high at 96.4%. for March, so it was the same as it was in February, so we're holding steady there with only a couple of stations needing pumps serviced or replaced. On the tank levels, on the next slide you can see a couple of issues that we had on the blue line, the northern reservoirs. We did have some issues in the beginning part of the month affecting Barragata Reservoir, so that's that dip there, and then you can see a dramatic drop on the southern reservoirs, the red line. We did also have a few main breaks all along the same time, which affected our reservoir levels in the south, Talafofo and Wynwood Hills area. On the wastewater side, pump station operability is down a little bit. We're at 91.2%. We need to pick that up. We do have several pump stations in the south that are waiting on parts in order to get those operability numbers up. For our inspection and cleaning for the month of March, we were very close to our 5-mile target, still a little bit behind from February, so we'll have to make that up as the year progresses. The next few slides just show the areas where we did conduct the cleaning in March. That's through page 54 of the board books. And then on page 55, on wastewater treatment, we disposed of 1.5 million pounds of sludge this month, primarily from Hagåtña and Northern, at about 779,000 for Hagåtña and 747,000 for Northern. Total cost 139,000. And you can see the flows are fairly consistent, not too much rain or infiltration for the agate plant, so the flows there are low. Average daily flows at 1.1. On the asset management side, you can see our equipment preventive maintenance to corrective maintenance ratio is at 34% corrective and 66% preventive maintenance. And the completion ratios for those are at 87% for corrective maintenance and 73% for preventive maintenance. Taking into account the leak repairs versus equipment, it's 53% of our corrective maintenance are for leak repairs and 47% are for equipment. And the completion ratios are 98% of our leak repair work orders are completed, and 87% on the equipment corrective maintenance. Moving on to page 58 on our One Guam update. We do have an inspection scheduled in the next few weeks for Tumon Maui, the quarterly inspection that we're required to do for the Navy. We did submit a letter to DOD requesting an increase in our pumping rates to the permitted pumping rate of 900 GPM. We have not received a response on that yet. We just want the flexibility to be able to pump at a higher rate there. For our coordination on the OEA projects, the one outstanding project which still has not been awarded is the NGLA expansion, the monitoring wells for the Northern Guam lens. We have a temporary construction easement that has been approved by the Navy, but it's got a stale date on it, so we have not signed it yet until we get a contractor on board. That is out to bid currently for the second time, and we anticipate the bids coming in right before the meeting on the 27th, so we won't have a contract for you yet on that, but we will next month, hopefully. In terms of the monitoring, well maintenance and cost sharing, we do have a draft MOA in place with the Navy. We're both working on refining that, and we have also been working to try and figure out how those long-term monitoring costs will be split between the various parties. So I don't have anything for you yet, but within the next month or so, we should be finalizing our proposal on that and presenting it to the board. In terms of additional water service to Camp Blas, we are still waiting on the Marine Corps to formally request that, but we have their projected needs, and we are able to satisfy additional supply to them in the next couple of years for what we anticipate their needs to be, but they have not formally requested it as of yet. We got a little bit closer to finalizing the strategy framework, which outlines the projects, interoperability projects over the next couple of years. We did have meetings to coordinate that. There are a couple projects that are being discussed now, including an intertie at Andy South. We've talked previously about the Santa Rosa intertie that's being constructed currently. And we're going to go right up to the fence line, but we have not received the interconnection approval yet from the Air Force Base on that. In terms of potential property transfers, there's still the sewer system up in Nimitz Hill along Murray Road, which is being contemplated, but we have not finalized that as of yet. I think that's pretty much it for One Guam. Moving on to page 59, the court order summary, no change there. We're still at 98, almost 99% completion, pending the completion of the tank projects. We did have some SSO events in the month of March and out to early April. Again, as mostly due to fat, soil, and grease issues. Page 60, the land acquisition summary, only a couple properties. We've got some change from the last meeting. We're still waiting on the AG's office for the land registration process for the Estumbo tank and for the Odden booster pump station. We are waiting on CLTC for the land purchase for that pump station site. And then 61 just gives you an update on our leak repair. We are still keeping the number of open work orders for leaks down below 20. You can see that we're right around 15, I think, for most of March. And then one other thing we wanted to show you, as the chairman mentioned previously, we are starting phase 2.
There's always more reported than referred. Is that just because some of the reported ones don't actually turn out to be an actual leak, or?
This is what we have at the backlog at any given day, so we can't get to all of them, so there's always a little bit of a backlog.
But are they times there's hundreds of leaks, right? So these, especially the same leaks.
Not the same leaks, just the number of, so at the end, get to the end of March, we have a certain number of work orders that we haven't yet completed. Those get tackled in the beginning of April, but at the end of April, the same situation arises. Not cumulative. The slide that we have up now just indicates the bypass plan and the impacts that it's going to have to traffic on Route 1 between Assen and the Gutna treatment plant.
Yeah.
As we continue to move into phase 2, I just wanted the board to be aware that we are going to have impacts to traffic and the public. So we will be going out and reaching out to the media to kind of give them information on the project, when the how long the project's going to take, that they should expect route changes to lanes and the traffic routing during that period. So we'll be reaching out to kind of get that information out to the public in the coming weeks before the project starts. But we're getting ready to start that phase 2 project.
And roughly how long?
How long?
Yeah,
It's a couple years.
couple of years?
Yeah.
So it will tie into the Ukudu power plant construction. Transportation, right there.
In terms of time frame?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good time to run for reelection.
Okay, that's all I had for you. Just wanted to give you an update on that, and then the CFO.
Thank you. This is, actually, Miguel, this is something that's very good. We need to do more of this outreach, like the mayor's office in Agana, the media, so that they know this is coming.
I think we already met with the contractor and the
Okay.
mayor's office yesterday, right?
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
I've already set up Dale's video schedule for next week.
Okay.
The signs are going up at the end of this week, so we will have the outreach will really start in earnest next week.
Okay.
We'll probably have people bring you to attention as the signs go.
Sure.
According to those that are meeting yesterday, the signs will be up at the end of this week.
Okay, finance?
This is a snapshot of our key financial indicators. For the month of March, our debt service coverage slipped by 0.01. And our cash on hand went down a couple days from 293 to 291. Our collection ratio for March was a little better than, it was 100% in March. So we did well for that month. And our year-to-date was at 96%. We billed 29 days, same as February, and our accounts receivable days went down 1 day, and our accounts payable was stretched out 2 more days. Our FTEs went down to 365. We've been in a cost containment mode, and so we're not filling slots as they become vacant, but we're working to slowly fill those. Our water demand for the month of March was slightly better than, or was better than February, but lower for our wastewater flows. And then our water customers and wastewater customers about the same. The next slide shows a snapshot of our revenues against our expenses, and this is, so now we're looking at the kind of the COVID year, right, from April last year to March. And the next slide is a picture of what our overall revenues and demand look like for the last year, with the blue for water, the red for wastewater, and the green line is our revenues. The next slide shows, breaks out our revenues and demand into water and wastewater. And then following that, this compares, this takes a look at our collection rate with the purple line, our year-to-date collection, against the green line, which is our month-to-date. And then the blue line is our water revenues and, our overall revenues, and the red are collections.
It'll be interesting to see what happens for April with all the EPC money or whatever that is.
Yeah, Heidi was saying that there hasn't been a line in a long time at the drive-through, and today there was. So.
Oh, good. Commissioner Sanchez.
I apologize, I had to leave, but thank you as always for your summary. And will the full financial be on the board books on Tuesday?
Should be there.
I think it's here
I missed
already.
it.
Yeah,
Sorry.
under
I'm
the
looking for
division
it.
reports.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's in the,
What page?
Division reports.
you should have 138.
Oh, you mean don't go page by page? Thank you. Well, that's why we have younger people and fresh eyes on the commission. Okay, so eventually I would have got to page 117. Thank you so much. I'll reserve questions for Tuesday if any, but
Sure.
Mr. Chairman, as a suggestion, since I know tomorrow's meeting is critical, and Tuesday is a combined meeting of both utilities, and I know there's been some informal discussion about the time of our regular meetings, and do we want to consider, especially because we have enough time to put out public notice, moving up the time for Tueswe's meeting?
For our
from
regular
5:30
CCU
to
meeting?
Some other time, because
Yeah.
we know this,
I don't
we're
mind.
about to approve a 5-year rate increase. We're going to need the time to absorb it.
What would you
3 years,
suggest?
I'm sorry, you're at 3, but to me, it's implied as to where it's going. Once you get to 3 years from now, it ain't going to go back down, right? This is the beginning of a 20-year financing plan, right? So, you've been in that movie, right? We're now in the sequel. So I was wondering whether we want to consider starting the meeting earlier on Tuesday, just 'cause I know-
4:30?
Yeah.
4?
Yeah, or like the work sessions are at 4:30.
4:30.
That seems to get us home, at 7 or 8 instead of 9 or 10. But as a thought, do we want?
No, I think that's great.
3:30.
Have we given a notice yet on the CCU meeting?
Yes,
We have,
we have.
but you can always amend it. Today is Tuesday.
Okay.
As long as you get it out by tomorrow.
Well, I don't know, you need to follow the law, whatever we do, so if
Well, I
if
think
you
the notice
can.
is 5 days and that's tomorrow.
So-
It's 5 days, right? They can put it out.
Okay, so
Do
you
we
can
want to
change.
change the time
Oh,
for
yeah,
Tuesday's
I don't have
meeting?
a problem. What's the wish of the commissioners? 4?
The high school golf season started and I'm the coach for our academy, so.
Okay.
I can do it, I can move the time up going forward in June.
Okay.
But this Tuesday meeting, it can't be any earlier than 4:30.
4:30.
So I have to get the girls started at 3:30, then I can just leave.
Okay.
They're really good golfers. They don't take
4:30.
4:30.
4:30 is fine, yeah. I don't have a problem.
is this gonna be, Simon?
Our Tuesday CCU meeting where we actually make the decisions, that'll be at 4:30 instead of 5. Our normal schedule is 4:30 for the work sessions and then 5:30 for the CCU meeting. But we'll move I'm with Commissioner Sanchez, I don't have a problem moving it up to 4:30.
Going forward, starting in June, I have no issue.
No problem with that either, right? Okay, that's
I
fine.
mean, we kicked that around too, others
Sure,
just to start
sure.
moving the meetings.
No, that's not a problem. Okay, I think we're at the end of this meeting. Can I have a motion to recess to 8 a.m. tomorrow morning?
So moved.
So second? Second by Commissioner Lonchalco. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye opposed. We're in recess.
So, on Tuesday, we'll come in at 4:30, do the workshop.